Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365. Johnny Mac, the preseason is officially in our rearview mirror. Now, all sights are set on September 6th, where the Eagles will head to Sao Paulo, Brazil, to take on the Green Bay Packers. I want to welcome everybody in today. This stream is brought to you by BetUS, so thanks to our good partner at BetUS. Johnny Mac, good Monday morning to you, man. How are you this morning?
Doing well. Yeah, finally getting close. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern, cut down to 53. Next day, you can assemble your practice squad, and then you're sort of off and running for that preparation. Week one, as you mentioned, Brazil, which I don't love for the Eagles' perspective, but obviously, the NFL wants to expand internationally. We'll talk a bunch about that, but right now it's about cutdown day.
No doubt about it. Cut down day tomorrow, so we're about to get a look at where Howie Roseman goes with our final 53. For those who don't know, the Eagles beat reporters, John McMullen included in those guys, they do a competition, I guess you could call it, every year to see who can get the closest projection on the 53-man roster. John, how do you do it? Just whoever's got the most accurate picks across the 53 and the practice squad?
Yeah, it generally comes down to practice squad. There's usually at least a few guys tied for the 53. Guys are getting smarter and smarter each year. Used to be a couple outliers would be back in the pack, but yeah, it usually comes down to the practice squad, which is even more difficult because if you really want to be bold, you try to find somebody else getting cut to bring to the practice squad. And I don't get you over the top, but that's really difficult. But from the perspective of the 53, it is, again, it is a little bit more challenging over the past few years because, and even more so this year, because they keep liberalizing the roster rules. So now there's a bunch of tricks you can play to keep guys that maybe you don't want to allow to go through waivers and let other teams potentially take a shot at them. So there's a lot of tricks you can play. Veteran players on the practice squad. Now you can place two guys on injured reserve and bring them back if you want to do it that way. And for instance, Tyler Steen would be the guy that, is he ready? Is he not ready? Are you put him on injured reserve, designate him to return. He's got to miss the first 4 games. That might allow you to keep somebody else that you would have either cut or put on waivers. So there's a lot of trickery now that you can play, and Howie's better at that than most, I would say.
Yeah, so a lot of trickery has been added with recent rule changes. John just laid out some of them to you there. Well, John, let's get into it. Before I do that, I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this morning. Good crowd already. I see a lot of you guys in our chat. Rashid, Saquad, Daz is in here. Crawley's in here. David Cleary. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Twiz, I think I see Twiz in here. Prince Swayze, what's up, everybody? Hit that like button for me. Appreciate you guys being here. John, without further ado, let's get into that 53-man projection. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Let's run through it quick, John, because we got Jeff Kerr coming up in 14 minutes. QBs, Johnny Mac, start there. What do we got?
Yeah, that's easy. That's one of those locked-in positions. You're going to keep 3. It's going to be Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee. So that one is not much of a concern. Running back, same thing. You're going to keep 3: Saquon Barkley, Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley, and then you'll add some depth into the practice squad amongst that trio of Kendall Milton, Ty Davis Price, Lou Nichols. You might even keep 2 of them. And then remember, the practice squad is 16. That's the expansion of the practice squad. Right. So you can keep a bunch of guys and do it about that way. Wide receiver is the first question. Obviously, the trade for Jahan Dotson. I think it hurts. I think it actually hurts Paris Campbell, John Ross, the veteran guys. Yeah, I think it actually helps Anaya Smith because now, and we've talked about Johnny Wilson as well. Johnny's not a bubble player. He's done enough before his concussion, but with those 2 guys, I mentioned pretty much the entire summer. I'm like, if you need those guys to play right now, it's not going to be good. They're not ready to play right now. And that's where Paris Campbell would have fit in most likely. Now you have Dotson, so I think it affects Campbell more than the guys on the back end. So I have the Eagles keeping 6, and it's going to be A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, Britton Covey for punt returning, obviously, most notably Johnny Wilson and Anaya Smith, I think, has done enough in the last week or so of camp. And he was, pretty solid against the Vikings. A lot of traffic, almost, twice the number of targets than any other receiver. And the key is nothing explosive, but the key is no drops. And that's been the issue with him throughout the spring and summer.
Yeah, well, the other key there is the Eagles just spent a draft pick on him, so that he
Howie,
has a little bit. He's graded on a curve in a way.
Yeah, that's the bigger point. I don't think Howie wants to give up on the 152nd overall pick so early. And the other side is, can you get him through to the practice squad? And it becomes more difficult with him because he's a skill position player. He splashed in college. He was kind of a big deal in college. So you have some concern that somebody will go back to watch the college tape and say, oh, I'll take a shot on that kid. He's out there and he's healthy. Remember, one of the reasons he fell in the draft is because he wasn't healthy. And they found a stress fracture in his shin at the scouting combine. So you're talking about a guy who might have been end of day 2, end of the 3rd round pick if he were completely healthy. Certainly, I would think early in the 4th round, and the Eagles got him in the 5th round because of those injury concerns. So, yeah, that's a tough guy. That's a tough guy to get through waivers. So I have them sticking with him. Tight end, I'm going light. Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, only 2 making, and this is where the key initial.
No EJ. You don't like EJ there.
No. I think he's still too raw. I don't think he's ready to play right now. He made, easy first down catch in the red zone, popped up in the air that Jay Ward of Minnesota intercepted. He was that player, that slant. So that didn't help him either. So I think he's still too raw, and you can get him on the practice squad. But that's where, initial 53. Because they're going to make moves.
They're going to make some moves, and they're going to end up with more than 2 tight ends.
Yeah, and they're not going to go to September 6th in Brazil with only 2 tight ends because Kellen Moore likes playing 12 personnel.
Right.
But these are some of the games I think they're going to play. They might even bring Jack Stoll back. The rumor is in New York that he's not going to make the Giants. So it could be something as simple as that. But, yeah, they'll add a tight end. But I think for the start, I think it's only going to be Dallas and Grant. And part of that is I'm going heavy on the offensive line for a number of reasons. And this is difficult as well because I don't think the depth has been as good as people have expected or wanted. Plus, you have some injury issues to concern yourself with. I mentioned Tyler Steen earlier. You could put him on injured reserve, and that gives you an extra roster spot. But, you're shooting in the dark at this point. And he was out there watching practice. He was out there before the game. You could see he had a wrap on his ankle, but he certainly didn't look like he was seriously injured. So right now I got to keep him on the roster, and I got 10. Obviously, the starters: Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton, Lane Johnson from left to right. Then you have the rookies: Trevor Keegan, Dylan McMahon. So a lot of people aren't going to put McMahon on their 53s. Again, I default to how he doesn't want to cut his draft picks. I think he's shown enough to have some long-term value to this team. But Jeff Stoutland likes backup centers. He always wants at least one backup center that he can work with, just in case. That is, there's a lot of guys with ability to play all across the interior, like Brett Toth and Nick Gates, but they're not just centers. And Dylan McMahon is a natural center. So I got him making it, and Tyler Steen, obviously, Fred Johnson. And then Nick Gates. I think Nick Gates is going to make the team for a couple of reasons. One, I think he might be their best backup offensive lineman. But two, he started 38 games. Mekhi Becton's knee is going to be a problem, I think. And there's going to be times when maybe he's got to come out of games. Maybe he misses a game here and there. Tyler Steen's injured as well. And Nick can go in there and play at an acceptable level at right guard. And I go back to the Super Bowl season. It was Isaac, Chance Warmack, Wisniewski, and they sort of set that up when they had some uncertainty. So that's the offense.
Offense looks good, John. I mean, the old line is interesting because no guys like that Max Sharping, Matt Hennessy, Brett Toth,
Well, I think
none of
Nick,
those guys
Nick,
in there.
Yeah, I think Nick Gates kind of usurped him. And it was
Yeah,
interesting
right.
to me.
Yeah.
They let him go out for the coin toss, which I think was notable.
Yeah, they
against
were
the
signaling
Vikings.
Nick Gates. They liked him.
Yeah.
Interesting
And
they did a tight
yeah.
end, some roster games. And then I agree with you on the receivers. I think they're going to go the young route over Paris Campbell and John Ross. But 7 minutes, John. Let's get into that defense, right, man? You have any other comments real quick on offense?
No. Well, yeah, we got to get through it quick before our buddy Jeff Kerr gets on there. So edge on the defensive side, they're going to go 6 because Patrick Johnson's made this team. You can't cut Patrick Johnson. I think it sends a bad message to your own locker room if you cut a player like that, as well as the fact that he deserves it. So it's going to be Josh Sweat, Bryce Huff, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, Alex Hunt, and Patrick Johnson. And Johnson's probably the 5th guy, and maybe even the 4th guy, to seeing how much they let Nolan Smith play against the Vikings. But
yeah, a lot of questions about Nolan right now among the fan base.
Yeah, defensive tackle, I think you're set with the first 4. I think they're keeping 5, and I have Marlon Tuipulotu as the 5th guy over Thomas Booker. A lot of people like Thomas Booker. Had a good preseason, good camp, but I think you need a backup for Jordan Davis, and Tuipulotu's more equipped to play the nose or the shade tackle than somebody like Thomas Booker. So I think, and you already have Moro Ojomo to back up the other guys. So it's Carter, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Moro Ojomo, and Marlon Tuipulotu. Linebackers, boy, Oren Burks is back, and he's good, and he shouldn't have been on the field against Minnesota, and he kind of showed that. But I don't know how you can keep him. I can't keep 6 linebackers, and I can't cut Ben Van Sumeren. So to me, it's going to be Devin White, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Ben Van Sumeren. I didn't think I'd be debating depth at linebacker at the start of camp, so that's a positive.
John, you have been a Ben Van Sumeren truther. You think that could be one that bites you in the butt? You think the Eagles might think about that differently and go with Oren Burks over the youngster?
Anything. I mean, if they think they can get him through waivers, I don't. He's not a high profile player, so that to me is a gamble. From Howie Roseman, and he might try to get away with it to keep Oren Burks. And it could bite me in the you-know-what, but, boy, I mean, he was the top-graded PFF player against Minnesota. I mean, there's nothing Ben Van Sumeren has done. It's similar to Patrick Johnson. It's like, at some point, you got to reward the guys who have made the football team. And I think Ben is in that category.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But, if he does feel he can get him through waivers, and Howie's got a better feel for this than most, he might try to play the trick. But he's also one of the best special teams players. So why are you going to risk that? That would be from my perspective. Corners, I got him keeping 6, and I tortured back and forth between Eli Ricks and Josh Jobe. Josh, the better special teams player, significantly. Eli, the better coverage player, significantly over Josh. And Howie has proven it before. He's going to keep the coverage guy. And there's a guy I think you can get through waivers. that's part of it as well. Josh Jobe. I think you can get him through waivers, and I think that's how Howie's going to look at it. So I have Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Isaiah Rogers, Kaylee Ringo, and Eli Ricks. 6 corners. And then safety is the most difficult position to project of all. Bradbury's still here till he's not here. I've said it pretty consistently. I can't believe how we would kick it this far down the road and wake up Tuesday morning and say, all right, I'm done. I give up. I'm just going to cut him to keep Tristan McCullum. I think he's going to gamble. It's going to be CJ, Reed Blankenship, Avante Maddox, James Bradbury, and they're going to try to get Tristan McCullum back on the practice squad. And then the specialist, easiest, no competition whatsoever. So that's Jake Elliott, Braden Mann, and Rick Lovato.
Pretty good 53 there, John. I'll tell you what's interesting, and we'll run through the practice squad real quick. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about Bradbury all summer. Now that the 53 is going to come out, now he has a real impact on the roster. You're going to let a guy like Tristan McCullum go to the practice squad. I think he might get sniped. Maybe he won't, but I thought he logged a pretty good summer. And for anybody watching out there that needs a safety, I think they'll pick him up, but we'll see. Hopefully he's a guy that stays in Philly. But John, good 53 overall there. We ran through them all. I don't know where the biggest chances where you could lose on the 53 are. Maybe they all do exist on the practice squad. So let's get to it.
Practice squad, I do think they'll bring Will Greer back simply because Doug Nussmeier and Kellen Moore love him. And I think they're kind of interning him to be a future coach. So I think they'll keep the extra arm. Remember, practice squads are 16 deep now, so you can keep a lot of guys.
What they used to be.
They used to be 10. Well, way back, it used to be 6, but it was 10. Then they expanded it, COVID, to 16, and teams liked it. And obviously, the Players Association agreed because it means more jobs.
Yeah, and it's a physical game. I think you got to have some leeway for these teams, which I think is fair.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, but you can also have veterans on there now, which is big change. You can have up to 6 veterans, so that's a big change. Vested veterans. So Jeff's going to be. So we got a little bit more time. Jeff's not going to be in until 8:25. So
okay, cool.
Got a couple extra minutes, but running back because they're going to go light. I got him keeping 2. Kendall Milton, undrafted rookie from Georgia. Ty Davis Price, I think, has taken the lead over the group as a whole. So I think they'll try to get him back. Receiver, that's where I think you try to get Paris Campbell back. Again, you can put veterans on the practice squad. And I think, nobody was beating down his door to sign him in the offseason. So I think that's going to be the case here at the waiver wire when there's 1,100 people on the street, so to speak. So I think he'll be back. Joseph Nada, I think, has done enough that they'll invite him back. Tight end, E.J. Jenkins, that's where I think he fits. Still a developmental player. I do think they like him. Offensive line, Darian Kennard was a guy earlier in camp. I thought he had a shot, but I think he kind of teetered out a little bit towards the end of the summer. So I think he'll be back on the practice squad. Brett Toth as well. You should be able to get him. On the edge, I think you want to try to get Julian Okwara back. He's done some nice things. Thomas Booker, defensive tackle. If you can get him through waivers as well as PJ Mustipher, you want that big body as well. Another veteran, Orrin Burks. You probably want to get him back. Now, he might be enough cachet to say, look, if you're going to cut me, I'm going to look around and try to find another job. And that might be one where you see the Eagles don't sign him, re-sign him to the practice squad right away as he checks the availability in his agent and then comes back a couple days early. A couple days later. I think that could end up happening. Corners, I think Josh Jobe should get through waivers. Another veteran guy, Perry Nickerson. And here's the thing about Tristan McCullum. They're going to try to get him back on the practice squad. Caden Stearns as well. The Eagles like Caden Stearns, but he's not ready to play because of his health. And long term, if Caden Stearns ever gets healthy and they're able to get him back, he's probably going to lap Tristan McCullum pretty quickly. So that's another
he's their
reason.
hedge in a way, yeah. Against
So that's another reason why I'm kind of a little bit more comfortable releasing Tristan McCullum, at least at the start, because I know Vic really likes Caden Stearns, and he's not healthy. So nobody's going to pick up him on waivers. Caden Stearns, I would think.
Yeah, I wouldn't think on him. I think McCullum is a possibility to get picked up on waivers. He's become a little bit of a fan favorite. They've liked what they've seen from him. We have a lot of guys in our chat right now saying they like Tristan McCullum, but it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with this team. John, pretty good layout though. Pretty good 53-man roster plus a pretty good 16-man practice squad. What do you think are what are the ones that you were like, when you made the decision, you were like, I'm going to make it,
well,
but this could burn me. What were some of those decisions?
Bradbury, number one.
Right.
I mean, they don't want him, but they don't want to seem to just cut him. So that's difficult. I mean, Howie could always, as I say, wake up and say, you know what? I gave it as long as I could and say, I do want to keep Tristan McCullum. So that's one. I mentioned Oren Burks is a good backup NFL linebacker, and that's why they signed him. But he wasn't healthy this summer. And maybe they can get him back as I said, if nothing else develops for him around the league. But, if Howie thinks he can get Ben Van Sumeren through the waiver wire, he can go the other way and keep Burks and bring Ben back to the practice squad if he's comfortable doing that. A little bit of Marlon versus Thomas Booker, but again, I think Marlon's the better fit because of his ability to play nose tackle. I think you need a backup nose tackle. So that's one. Offensive line, a lot of moving parts. I think they can get Dylan McMahon through the practice squad. Do they? That could sink me. Tyler Steen going to injured reserve could sink me. My putting too much emphasis on Nick Gates coming out to the coin toss could sink me. So a bunch of
there is a couple that could sink you, but I think you're good on. I think you're good on the rookies. I think your logic is correct on how he's draft picks. I don't see him putting. I think McMahon makes it. I think all his rookies make it. I think you're safe with all those picks, but maybe I'm wrong too. I could be wrong too.
Yeah. So those are the biggest question marks, I would say. And I'm thinking, like with Nick, I'm like, is he from Minnesota? He never played with the Vikings. I'm like, why is he going out for the coin toss? And by the way, he was one of their best players against the Vikings. Now, part of the thing, he's from Las Vegas, so I see no correlation to Minnesota whatsoever, other than he went to college in the Midwest, but he went to Nebraska, which is nowhere close. So, they seem to like him. And there's injury concerns, as I mentioned, with both Becton and Steen. So at least early in the season, makes sense for me to keep Nick Gates. And if everything works out and everybody's healthy, maybe you release him down the road. But early makes sense to have him.
Agree with you on that, Johnny Mac. 53-man in the books. The projection. How's it look for you? What do you think of that 53-man roster?
What's ironic, because we've all talked about, and you kind of saw it in the preseason game, which, that was ugly, and we talked about it after, but, that's not the deepest team in the world. Minnesota, and it's a bunch of backups versus backups, and the Vikings backups kind of waxed the Eagles backups, which surprised me a little bit. Little concerned with the depth on the offensive side, which is ironic because the offensive starters are so good, and all we talk about is how good the Eagles offense is. But that tells you how quickly things can go awry with the attrition of the NFL. I'm not in love with the depth on the offensive side. Defensively, again, you're not in love with the starters at certain positions, but the depth I like. It's sort of backwards,
Right.
So that's how I kind of look at the roster as a whole.
Yep, not bad. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. We'll get to our first commercial break. Before I do that, I want to tell everybody about our newest sponsor here on Birds 365, BetUS. Jeff Kerr, by the way, is coming up after the break. Still no Jeff in the green room, but he should be in with us shortly. And then in hour number 2, we'll have Chris Franklin. So a good show planned for everybody. That was John McMullen's 53-man roster projection and his 16-man practice squad projection. So the game with the beat reporters. I think Johnny Mac's going to get the win, everybody. That's my projection. I don't have a 53-man projection, but my projection is that John will win. So we'll get to our commercial break. Jeff Kerr coming up. Are you looking for a new sports book this football season? Everybody, BetUS is the answer, and JAKIB Sports is proud to announce our new football partnership for the upcoming season. Right now, receive a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. So tremendous sign-up bonuses right now. If you sign up, the link is down in our description of the video, so you can see the link right there. Use that link and you'll get credit for JAKIB Sports. If it's good for former Birds quarterback Michael Vick, it's definitely good for JAKIB Sports. So BetUS has the fastest payouts in the industry. It's fast and easy to deposit and withdraw your money. Obviously, that's a big part of it. And you get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. So BetUS is the best betting platform, and that's who we're using all football season long. So hit that link in the description. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. Thanks to them for sponsoring the show. We'll be back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
Michael Vick at betus.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.